Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Beyond World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janno.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. On the show today, talks were held between the U.S. and Ukraine in Geneva over the Russia-Ukraine peace plan. Key elements of the plan, earlier being referred to as Moscow's wish list, were rejected by European partners. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said tremendous progress has been made in the talks with Ukraine. We'll bring you the latest on that on the show.
Also on World DNA, in a major escalation of tensions in West Asia, Israel confirmed that it has targeted and killed Hezbollah's military chief in a strike on Beirut. Will we witness a resurgence of hostilities at full scale once again between Israel and Hezbollah? We'll bring you the latest on that as well. Let's start with the headlines.
Russian forces launch a massive drone attack on Ukraine's Kharkiv, killing 4 people. Emergency services work to recover bodies in the aftermath of the attack.
Because this continues to be a working process, I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done.
U.S. welcomes Geneva discussions, says major progress was made on developing a plan to end the war in Ukraine, though there was no agreement on how to ensure Kiev's security.
Israel says it has eliminated Hezbollah's chief of staff, Haitham Ali Tabatai, in a strike on Beirut's southern suburbs, marking one of the most significant blows to the group's leadership in months.
Hamas says its delegation discussed the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement with the head of Egyptian intelligence in Cairo, reaffirms commitment to implementing the first phase, stressing the importance of putting an end to Israeli violations.
Venezuelans marked President Nicolas Maduro's 63rd birthday on a day of voting held against the backdrop of rising tensions between the country and the U.S.
Dozens of opponents of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro march in Sao Paulo to mark his arrest with large inflatable figures portraying the right-wing leader in a prison uniform.
Lithuania's Vilnius airport temporarily halts operations due to balloons moving towards its airspace, diverting some incoming flights to other cities.
Prime Minister Modi reaches Delhi after concluding his 3-day visit to South Africa, where he attended the G20 summit.
Special light and laser show illuminates Delhi's Red Fort as part of the commemorations marking the 350th martyrdom day of Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur.
New Zealand is set to introduce digital currency to financial education program from next year for school children. The new curriculum will adopt a progressive approach that builds financial competence throughout the educational journey of students.
Now, the United States has hailed progress made during Ukraine peace talks in Geneva.
This is a joint statement which was released by the United States and Ukraine, and at that unveiled an updated peace framework that upholds Ukraine's sovereignty. Now, the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio led the American delegation in Geneva on Sunday, meeting with Ukrainian and European officials to discuss a cessation of hostilities that began with Russia's invasion in February 2022.
The framework revised a previous 28-point plan that had required Ukraine to cede territory, reduce its armed forces, and renounce NATO ambition. These were terms that Kyiv had rejected and sought changes to.
Striking an optimistic chord, Rubio said that US was making changes to the peace plan based on Ukraine's suggestions so as to come to an agreement.
We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take is 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. And we have achieved that today in a very substantial way. So I feel very optimistic that we're going to get there in a very reasonable period of time very soon. Our goal is to end this war as soon as possible, but we need a little more time.
Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the talks with U.S. in Switzerland to achieve peace in Ukraine were substantive and that U.S. President Donald Trump's team is hearing Ukraine's concerns.
The delegation has just reported on the results of their discussions, and these were substantive conversations. A lot is changing. We are working very carefully on the steps needed to end the war. It is important that there is dialogue with the American representatives, and there are signals President Trump's team is hearing us.
According to reports, US and Ukrainian officials also discussed a potential visit by Ukrainian President Zelensky to Washington to meet Trump as early as this week following the Geneva talks. Sources say the trip, which is yet to be confirmed, would focus on the most sensitive parts of the plan, especially territorial issues.
Meanwhile, on the war front, Russian forces staged a massive drone attack on Sunday on Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. A video release showed emergency services working to extinguish flames and recover bodies in the aftermath of the attack. And according to the mayor, at least 4 people were killed in the strikes, while 17 were injured. 15 strikes were reported in 6 areas of the city in northeastern Ukraine. The governor of Dnipropetrovsk region, farther south, said 2 people were killed in a Russian strike on the town of Marhanets. And well, to discuss more on this, we're now being joined by Professor James A. Russell from Ontario, California. He is an associate professor of national security affairs at the Naval Postgraduate School. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. Always a pleasure talking to you. Now, do you foresee a peace plan, which can get Russia back from its core demands? Since we know that Ukraine, that begins with, Ukraine to see territory cuts to the Ukraine army and dropping NATO ambitions.
Well, before answering that, I think the first thing to note was that in your excellent run-up report was the comment by the Ukrainian president, which spoke to the seriousness with which the Ukrainians are addressing this circumstance, which is the most important thing, I think, because it's the Ukrainians, of course, who have been struggling on the battlefield for the last 6 months. They have been steadily losing ground, and their incentives to try to reach agreement, I would say, have changed substantially over the last 6 months or so. But moving from that, the question of can these what were regarded previously as red lines out of Kiev, which was the idea, again, of the presence of Western forces in Ukraine, U.S. security guarantees, all these kinds of issues are TBD. They're yet to be worked out. And these are I would have said, the fundamental issues. The size of the Ukrainian army. There's a whole host of issues in this proposed agreement, which is said to have, at least according to press reports, is said to have originated in Moscow. So But stepping back from all this, I think I would say that, we should all hope that the war can be brought to a speedy conclusion as quickly as possible. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or wounded in this awful conflict, and the world would be a better place if the war stopped.
I hear your point. Professor, let me just come to the comment that was made by Marco Rubio. He said tremendous progress has been made. This is after the talks in Geneva. Now, Russia was not on that table. So when he says progress, for US getting that deal made is progress. For Ukraine ensuring its sovereignty is progress. But when Marco Rubio says progress was made, does that mean they were able to get Ukraine to agree to most of those terms which came from Russia? How do you see it?
It's of course the most important question. And I regret to have to sort of say that America's previous forays into these kinds of circumstances, and I'm thinking here of the Gaza agreement, in which the I's are not dotted, the T's are not crossed, it's not really a peace plan, it was done on the fly, the Palestinians were not included. There are certain parallels here with the circumstances between, again, key stakeholders in this, which are the Europeans, it's the Ukrainians, it's the Russians, it's the United States. The fact of the matter is that everybody needs to be around the conference table together, engaged in multilateral diplomacy. And a very regrettable feature of American foreign policy stretching back more than a decade is that we don't really seem able to do actual real multilateral diplomacy anymore, which is difficult, right? It requires seasoned and trained diplomats. This is all being done, on the fly, as I said, as a document that shows up with a presidential envoy, several days ago, at least according to press reports. And the I's have to be dotted, the T's have to be crossed. If they're going to be, just as an example, if they're going to be security guarantees, what are those security guarantees exactly? Can the Ukrainians trust any of the security guarantees that are going to come out of an American administration, which has moved all over the map in the last 16 months, 12 months or so are they taking Moscow's point of view? Are they supporting Kyiv?
Exactly. And from that, I come to the role of the European allies, because in the end, when it comes to these talks, I'm sure there's some kind of role that Europeans are going to take. But when we look at how vulnerable do you think Ukraine is at this point? Because on the battlefield, it's Russia who is overtaking all these areas, and then maybe not now. I mean, if this was earlier, then maybe some two regions must have been taken. Now, if we go even further delay, maybe he would take over other regions as well, and then be like, okay, now we're going to take these territories, and this is going to be the point of contention we start. How vulnerable do you think Ukraine is at this point, and what does it mean for European allies too?
Well, the European allies, it strikes me, have taken the extremely unrealistic position that the reverses on the battlefield can somehow be changed with additional defense equipment, new kinds of defense equipment, when the reality is that Ukraine's out of men. And they're fighting a country with 300 million people, and it's not that there's an inexhaustible supply of Russian soldiers, but Russia is just grinding them down. And there's no way for the Europeans, I don't care what kind of equipment is being delivered. The Ukrainians are said to have recently concluded an agreement for advanced fighter aircraft, for example, from the French. Well, advanced fighter aircraft aren't going to change the circumstances on the battlefield. So the Europeans come to this whole endeavor, largely having been excluded, of course, by the United States, in a position of decreased leverage. The United States, the Trump administration, essentially dumped this problem into their laps several months ago. And the Europeans, of course, see the advances by Moscow is extremely alarming for European security. So they have their own interests in this circumstance, to include the ability of the Ukraine to continue having some kind of military and security relationship with the Europeans, which of course is directly opposed to Moscow's interests, right? So how does this get resolved? These again speak to the subtleties of the agreement and the need for deft and experienced diplomats to really be working these over.
Understood.
And I sincerely hope that Marco Rubio and the team at the State Department is engaged in that right now.
Yeah, and Professor Russell, even if you go back to the Alaska summit, Putin had
Right.
said that our core issues need to be resolved. And even now, this peace plan, the first draft of it, those core issues still remain. So nothing seems to have changed from the Russian perspective. The compromise only seems to be coming from one side. That's where things stand as of now. We'll wait and watch how this one pans out. That was Professor Russell joining us from California. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift focus now to West Asia. In a major escalation of tensions in the region, Israel has targeted and killed Hezbollah's military chief.
Now, this was in a strike on Beirut. The Israeli military confirmed the operation took place on Sunday, striking an apartment building in the Haaretz district, a Hezbollah stronghold in the southern Beirut. This according to the Lebanese authorities. Now, the attack resulted in the deaths of at least 5 people, with 28 others wounded. Hezbollah, however, reported that 4 of its fighters were killed in the strike.
Now, this is the first killing of a senior Hezbollah commander by Israel since the November 2024 ceasefire, which was meant to halt more than a year of hostilities between the two sides. Despite this latest strike, the Israeli military insists it remains committed to that ceasefire.
In a statement, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel will not allow Hezbollah to rebuild its power, calling on the Lebanese government to fulfill its commitment to disarm the militant group.
Several hours ago, the IDF eliminated Ali Tabatabai, the chief of staff of the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Tabatabai was a mass murderer. His hands are stained with the blood of many Israelis and Americans, and not for nothing did the United States offer a reward of $5 million for his head. I expect the government of Lebanon to fulfill its commitment to disarm Hezbollah.
The Israeli military described the strike as part of its ongoing efforts to neutralize threats from Hezbollah. The strike targeted the 3rd and 4th floors of a 9-story building in the densely populated area of Haaretz, where Hezbollah maintains a significant presence. Rescue crews scrambled to search for survivors, with debris scattered across the area and several burnt out vehicles lining the streets. Local residents recounted the horror of the attack.
Today we were just sitting and suddenly there was a very loud sound. My house is on the 2nd street. I came to check because my aunts live here on this street and my sister also lives here on the 1st floor. I'm still checking on her. I've been calling, but she's not answering yet. I don't know. As Shiites, are our hands tied? They want to take our weapons, but our weapons will not be taken. There are those women who have lost a martyr, a husband, a child, and they still want to take our weapons. This only gives us more determination, strength, and dignity.
In response, Hezbollah condemned the killing of Tabatabai, calling it a treacherous Israeli attack. The group vowed to retaliate against what it called an act of aggression.
This attack today on the southern suburbs crosses a new red line, a line that was previously crossed.
The airstrike came just days ahead of Pope Leo's scheduled visit to Lebanon, adding further complexity to the already volatile situation. Before his role as military chief, Tabatabai had been involved in Hezbollah's operations in Yemen and Syria, where the group supported the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The United States had offered a $5 million reward for information leading to his capture, highlighting his importance on the global stage.
Hezbollah's weakening position follows its involvement in the broader regional conflict, particularly in support of Hamas during the 2023 Gaza war. And since then, both Israel and the U.S. have increased pressure on Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah, a move that the group has vehemently opposed.
Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has condemned Israel's actions and called on the international community to take a firm stand against Israel. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has filed an appeal to the country's top court.
And this is following a lengthy prison sentence on Sunday. The 70-year-old right-wing leader has been in custody since Saturday due to potential flight risk.
Bolsonaro was convicted for planning a foiled coup attempt by the Supreme Court, which ordered the detention of former right-wing leader on Saturday after taking note of a police report on his ankle monitor. Now, the judge placed him under arrest before the planned supporters' vigil outside his home, which the judge said could undermine police monitoring of his house arrest.
No matter how hard they try to cancel and hide Bolsonaro's presence, you can see that the people are on the streets, that the people are dissatisfied, that the people support President Bolsonaro. So being here today is a way of representing millions of people who may not have had the opportunity to be here.
Now, according to a Supreme Court document obtained by AFP, Bolsonaro stated during a hearing that he experienced paranoia between Friday and Saturday due to a medication side effect. He asserted that he had no intention of fleeing and that there was no breakage of the ankle monitor's strap.
Contrary to this, in a video made public by the court, Bolsonaro admitted that he had used a soldering iron on the monitoring bracelet out of curiosity. Bolsonaro's arrest order came hours after the judge received information that the ankle monitor was violated at 12:08 a.m. on Saturday. He was under house arrest since August and was monitored through the strap-on device while his appeals were rejected.
Now, Brazil's former First Lady, Michelle Bolsonaro, also visited Bolsonaro at the police station in Brasilia. Now, according to the Brazilian media, Michelle was not at the house when Bolsonaro was taken into custody. They added that she was authorized to visit the former president by the Supreme Court.
The court sentenced Bolsonaro in September to 27 years in prison over a scheme to stop leftist rival Lula da Silva from taking office in Brazil after the 2022 elections. Bolsonaro has denied any wrongdoing, and though he has already lost one appeal, he has until Monday for another challenge of his conviction. Meanwhile, dozens of opponents of former President Jair Bolsonaro took to the streets in Sao Paulo to mark the right-wing leader's arrest. Demonstrators gathered with signs and flags expressing their rejection of any amnesty for the embattled politician.
With all this, we understand that Bolsonaro deserved it. I don't think anyone imagined he would try to weld his electronic ankle bracelet, so justice must be served equally for everyone in the country.
Now, Slovenia just witnessed one of Europe's scariest Christmas traditions.
The Krampus, a half-demon folklore figure with horns and masks, took over the streets and rained mayhem. More in this next report. Take a look.
All right, now it's time for a very short break on World Day. Don't go anywhere. Coming up on the other side, Bangladesh has once again asked India to extradite ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. This according to a Bengali daily, Pratham. We'll get you all the details on the other side.
Also in India's neighborhood, political parties in Nepal register themselves ahead of the crucial polls that are set to take place next year. We'll bring you the details on that. This and a lot more lined up. Come right back after a short break. This is World DN.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness. WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Had probably the most productive and meaningful meetings.
U.S. and Ukraine say they have created an updated and refined peace framework to end the war with Russia, modifying an earlier plan drafted by Trump administration, which Kiev and its allies saw as too sympathetic to Moscow.
Russian forces launch a massive drone attack on Ukraine's Kharkiv, killing 4 people. Emergency services work to recover bodies in the aftermath of the attack.
Israel says it has eliminated Hezbollah's chief of staff, Haitham Ali Tabatai, in a strike on Beirut's southern suburbs, marking one of the most significant blows to the group's leadership in months.
Ruling PMLN in Pakistan leads by a clear margin as vote counting continues following by-elections in 6 National Assembly and 7 Punjab Assembly constituencies. Imran Khan's PTI has alleged rigging.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Delhi after concluding his 3-day visit to South Africa, where he attended the G20 summit.
Dozens of opponents of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro march in Sao Paulo to mark his arrest, with large inflatable figures portraying the right-wing leader in a prison uniform.
A prediction market platform has announced the closing of $1 billion funding round, valued the firm at $11 billion, as the company experiences a surge in mainstream adoption of event-based trading. Its value more than doubles in less than 2 months. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has wrapped up his 3-day visit to South Africa while taking part at the India-Brazil-South Africa summit in Johannesburg. He called for the immediate reforms in UN Security Council.
While meeting Brazilian President Lula da Silva and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the sidelines of the G20 summit, Modi urged that the India-Brazil-South Africa troika should send a clear message for overhauling global governance structures. Prime Minister Modi has stressed that reforming the United Nations Security Council is no longer an option but a necessity.
He further emphasized that IBSA's message of unity and cooperation is vital amid global polarization. On fight against terrorism, he stressed the need for stronger security collaboration and proposed an institutionalized and a state-level dialogue, asserting that there is no place for any double standards on such a serious issue and we must move forward in close coordination.
He made these crucial remarks following recent Delhi blast case and Pahalgam terror attack, underscoring India's push for unified global counter-terrorism efforts. Prime Minister Modi held bilateral meetings with several world leaders in Johannesburg on the sidelines of the G20 summit.
Well, some of the key takeaways from his meetings include announcement of a joint initiative, cooperation with Italy, and combating financing of terrorism, an agreement with Canada to unlock the potential for deeper cooperation in defense and space sectors, besides advancing ties in areas such as trade, investment, technology, and energy.
A bilateral with Japan, Prime Minister discussing ways to strengthen cooperation in areas like innovation, defense, and talent mobility, and a new trilateral technology and innovation partnership between India, Australia, and Canada. New details are emerging in the Delhi blast case. Reports now point to 5 major disclosures.
Now, these disclosures reveal the scale, the preparation, and the internal fault lines behind this terror attack. Now, we begin with what sources say is perhaps the most chilling detail so far, the explosives trail. According to sources, Dr. Muzammil Shakil, a key accused and close aide of suicide bomber Dr. Umar Nabi, has admitted during interrogation that he spent 2 years preparing for these attacks. He allegedly collected explosives, remotes, and critical bomb-making material, and sources say he bought 26 quintals of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium fertilizer worth 3 lakh rupees from Gurugram and New.
He bought the fertilizer along with other chemicals and electronic components from New, that's Mewat, and Faridabad markets. Official confirmations of these interrogation details are still awaited. Second is the money trail. Sources also indicate that the module self-financed the operation, raising 26 lakh rupees just for explosive procurement. Dr. Omar, Dr. Muzammil, Dr. Shaheen, each contributing their share. Once again, official agencies are yet to confirm these interrogation inputs.
And the third is the dispute that delayed the attack. What sources are revealing is that a bitter money conflict between Dr. Umar and Dr. Muzammil led to a delay in the terror attack. Even after gathering explosives and material, the module was stuck. Muzammil, sources say, he demanded either a refund or custody of the IED stock. He even admitted to buying an AK-47 for 6.5 lakh rupees and named several handlers. A signal group created 3 months ago to resolve the dispute failed, and arms later recovered from Shaheen's car. A Krinkov rifle and a pistol were seized by Muzammil after the fallout. Well, all of this, with formal confirmation, is still awaited. This is what the reports say so far.
Fourth is NIA's next move. Now, the National Investigation Agency is expanding the probe. Sources say Dr. Shaheen Saeed may be taken to Lucknow and Kanpur, and Dr. Adil Ahmed to Saharanpur, where the Uttar Pradesh ATS is preparing to work closely with NIA teams. The focus is their networks, their movements, and any local support that they may have received. Formal agency statements are still awaited.
And the fifth is a new arrest in Srinagar. The State Investigation Agency has arrested Tufail Niaz Bhatt, an AC technician from Srinagar, detained and now formally arrested in connection with the Jaish-e-Mohammed module being probed in Jammu and Kashmir. Well, more details on the State Investigation Agency are still expected.
Bangladesh has once again asked India to extradite ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
And this according to a Bengali daily, Pratham Alo, that Dhaka has sent the third official extradition request to New Delhi. Earlier this week, Hasina was sentenced to death by Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal after it found her guilty of committing crimes against humanity. Hasina presided over a deadly crackdown against a student-led uprising in August last year. The former Bangladesh premier has been in exile in India since then.
Following the court ruling, the Foreign Ministry in Dhaka said in a statement that Delhi had an obligatory responsibility under a bilateral treaty to facilitate the former leader's return. India's Foreign Ministry has said that it has noted the verdict, but so far it has refused to comment on the extradition request. India's past support for Sheikh Hasina has frayed relations between the two neighbors since her overthrow. But tensions appear to have eased slightly when Bangladesh's National Security Advisor Khalilur Rahman visited India this week for a regional security summit and met with his counterpart Ajit Doval.
India and Bangladesh signed an extradition treaty in 2013. Article 8 of the treaty allows either side to not accept an extradition request if the accused proves the request is unjust or oppressive, including if the charges are trivial, not made in good faith, politically motivated, or if the person risks persecution.
Speaking to WION after the tribunal's verdict, Sajib Wajid, the son of Sheikh Hasina, has slammed the verdict as a sham and the extradition request as illegal. He accused the Yunus regime of denying Hasina the due process of law and carrying out an illegal trial.
Now, Nepal is moving towards a critical election and the country is bracing for impact. With 12 more political parties, of course, including the Nepali Congress, registering the Election Commission on Sunday. The total number of parties readying for the March 5th general election has now risen to 56.
The deadline for registration closes on November 26th and Nepal's ballot is getting denser by the day. But as the list of contestants grows, so do the security fears. On Saturday, Nepal's interim government, led by Prime Minister Sushila Karki, took a decision no government takes lightly: the deployment of the Nepali army for next year's polls. The recommendation came directly from the National Security Council after a review of potential risks following this week's clashes between KP Sharma Oli's supporters and Gen Z protesters.
The Ministry of Home Affairs has now approved an integrated security plan for all 77 districts, a plan designed to deliver what the government calls a free, fair and fearless election. But outside government buildings, another narrative is gaining momentum.
Ousted Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, amid deadly anti-corruption protests, has announced the creation of a new national volunteer service under his party. He claims it is meant to protect citizens, media and professionals. Critics say it is a parallel power structure, a direct challenge to the government's authority, and tensions continue to rise.
On Thursday, members of the CPN UML were accused of attacking Gen Z protesters, forcing authorities to reimpose a curfew. It was a flashback to September when at least 76 people were killed. Parliament and courts were torched, and a four-time prime minister was driven out of office.
Germany, Europe's biggest economy and once the world's benchmark of industrial strength, is now facing its toughest economic test in decades.
And our next report breaks down what's really behind Germany's slowdown, how global shifts are reshaping its economy, and why the stakes extend far beyond its borders. Take a look.
Germany's industrial economy is facing its deepest challenge in decades. After 4 years of stagnation, production has fallen back to 2005 levels. Consultants and industry leaders warn that this is no longer a cyclical downturn, but a structural crisis. Two external shocks are intensifying the decline. First, US President Donald Trump's tariffs have hit German exporters hard, with shipments to the US falling 7.4% this year. New duties on steel, alloys, and hundreds of industrial components are disrupting supply chains and forcing German manufacturers to pause exports or raise prices. But the bigger blow is coming from China. Chinese capital goods are now roughly 30% cheaper, and quality levels have caught up. This year, for the first time, Germany has recorded a trade deficit with China in capital goods. Chinese machinery exports to Europe have nearly doubled to 40 billion euros. The combined pressure from falling demand, US tariffs, and Chinese competition is reshaping Germany's job market. Major automakers and suppliers, including Volkswagen, Mercedes, Bosch, and Continental, have announced large workforce cuts. Employment in the industrial sector is sliding, even as services try to absorb the losses. Companies are nearing a tipping point on capacity utilization, and more job cuts are expected. Policymakers are racing to respond, with Chancellor Friedrich Merz unveiling a €1 trillion investment plan for infrastructure and defense. But much of the burden falls on local governments, which lack the borrowing capacity to act quickly. Defense manufacturing is growing but remains too small to offset the downturn. Industry leaders warn that without faster reforms and stronger protection against global competition, Germany's industrial crisis may deepen before any recovery begins. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that the world can make progress on a range of issues without the U.S.
He said the consensus reached at the Group of 20 Leaders meeting in Johannesburg carries weight despite a boycott by President Donald Trump's administration.
Now, Trump had said only the chairman's report could be provided in Washington from the meeting, while the U.S. was absent. The president issued the stay-away order after reiterating the accusation that white Afrikaner farmers in South Africa are facing genocide. In defiance of U.S. pressure, this year's G20 host, South Africa, issued a statement following the summit.
Carney, in a press conference in Johannesburg, said the summit brought together nations representing 3/4 of the world's population, 2/3 of global GDP, and 3/4 of the world's trade, and that's without the United States formally attending. It's a reminder that the center of gravity in the global economy is shifting. Carney took office earlier this year after running a campaign that pushed back against Donald Trump's tariffs. He had defied Trump's suggestions that Canada could be part of US territory. The Canadian Prime Minister has also focused on reducing the Canadian economy's reliance on the US. At the press conference, he detailed his attempts to strengthen ties with nations ranging from South Africa to India and China. Carney emphasized that he wouldn't have his agenda dictated by Trump.
And referring to Trump, the Canadian Prime Minister said, and I'm quoting him, "I'll speak to him again when it matters. I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now." He added, when America wants to come back and have the discussion on the trade side, we will have those discussions.
Automation has always been the holy grail for factory lines and manufacturers across the spectrum.
But with AI, a different caliber of robots is being born, not just automations designed to accomplish repetitive tasks. This class of robots is capable of distinguishing between actions, making decisions, and tackling tasks that need nuance and understanding. Take a look at some of the latest AI-driven robots. Here's a report on that.
In the rolling hills of Italy's wine country, amid rows of grape wines that have been tended by hand for centuries, vintners are trying to see if a robot can pick grapes. Fraschi, the robot, has in fact been designed to do much more. See every grape cluster, map every leaf, and understand a vineyard the way a human expert would. At first glance, it doesn't look much like a robot. Fraschi could be easily mistaken for a small four-wheeled rover you'd expect to find on a space mission. And that's not entirely off the mark. Fraschi is certainly well equipped. Using cameras, sensors, and artificial intelligence, it can identify individual grape clusters, track their growth, and even detect early signs of stress or disease. Developed by a Japanese robotics manufacturer called Enactic, OpenArm is a robot designed to step into short-staffed care homes and busy households. It doesn't look or move like a robot. Instead, it works with balance, softness, and a human-like approach to touch.
The actual robots that we'll deploy will be very different to this. But I think when we start building the whole body, the arms is by far the most important part in like AI training, and also just like having good like operability through teleoperation is very important. So we wanted to make the ARM part open source and sort of like gain as much feedback and iterate on the hardware, iterate on the software stack as fast as possible.
Its main purpose is simple: handle daily chores. And while these routine tasks don't need human intelligence, they do need a high degree of dexterity. Given that, it's no small feat that OpenArm can wash dishes, sort clothes, and fold laundry. Precisely the kind of tasks that tend to pile up for caregivers. Chinese robotics company XPeng's new humanoid is a leap towards physical AI. It has a flexible spine, artificial muscles, and a soft synthetic skin that can sense touch. The robot has an impressive range of movement, with more than 80 degrees of freedom across its body and highly detailed control in its hand movements. These allow Iron to walk smoothly, grip objects with precision, and perform tasks that require delicate coordination. Its motion system uses advanced joints that help it move naturally and consistently. In fact, its movements are so fluid that on social media, users even suggested that there was a human hiding inside the robot's skin. The company later released a video to prove that ION is, in fact, not human, but a humanoid.
And world champion South Africa find themselves in the driver's seat in the Guwahati test.
Senuran Muthuswami's maiden test 100 and Marco Janssen's career best 93 helped them post 489 in the first innings. India trailed the Proteas by 480 runs after day 2 when South Africa resumed on 247 for 6. A total of over 400 looked unlikely, but Senuran Muthuswami's but he made sure that they got there and much more. His 88-run stand with Kyle took them past 330. Then Janssen joined him and immediately took the attack to the Indian bowlers. Muthuswami's reached his maiden test century of 192 balls and Janssen followed with his fourth test 50.
Now the pair added 97 for 8th wicket before Mohammad Siraj removed Muthuswami 409. With South Africa on 431 for 8. Janssen continued his blitz. He finished on 93 off just 91 balls, hit 6 fours and 7 sixes, and was the last wicket to fall as South Africa posted 489.
India reached 9 without loss in 6.1 overs before bad light stopped play. No team has ever lost a test in India after scoring as many as South Africa's 489. If the Proteas manage to keep that record intact, they will hand India a second home series loss in 12 months after going 12 years without any. And they will clinch their first test series with an Indian soil. First test series win on an Indian soil in 25 years. And next up, let's take a look at what's making news in entertainment, starting with BAFTA Breakthrough Fellow Sindhu Srinivas Murthy is set to direct Teacher's Pet. The movie is a coming-of-age comedy set in an all-girls Catholic boarding school in India. The project is being showcased at the International Film Festival of India. The film follows Rinki, an ambitious overachiever aiming to become head girl, whose plans go off course when she finds herself competing against her former best friend. The production is slated to begin in December 2026 in Madhya Pradesh.
Day 4 of the 56th International Film Festival of India featured a powerful panel titled Global India Through Independent Cinema. A women's panel, actors Rachel Griffiths, Meenakshi Jain, and several other influential voices came together. The panel discussed how women's creative and personal journeys are shaping the future of independent filmmaking. The conversation opened with a focus on empathy as a defining force in women-led cinema, touching on challenges, representation, and the path ahead for diverse storytellers.
Musician Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino, revealed that he suffered a stroke last year. The 42-year-old opened up about health struggles during his appearance at the Camp Flogno Festival in Los Angeles. This incident forced him to cancel his tour. The Feels Like Summer hitmaker said he felt he had let everyone down and shared that doctors later discovered a hole in his heart, requiring 2 surgeries. His remarks quickly went viral, with fans sending messages of concern.